been long I heard some of those slangs from the governor whilst I was living in River State. But on a serious note, this is no longer funny what's going on in River State, which is why it's always in focus. And we talk about this as much as possible to find a pathway to a resolution as much as possible. We've been joined on the program by two gentlemen. Just as a background, the latest happening in River State is the fact that 5 commissioners in one day resigned from the cabinet of Governor Fubara of River State. This is after other commissioners have also resigned to take up either federal appointment or others. So those are the 5 commissioners from different ministries who are said to be loyal to FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. So that is going to be the crux of our conversation. We've been joined in the program by former Commissioner for Employment Generation and Economic Empowerment in River State. He's also a former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization in the last election, Dr. Lelono Nwibo Basa. Thank you so much for coming on the program, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
We also have Doye Federikumo. He's a legal practitioner and lecturer of Faculty of Law, Niger Delta University, Amasoma in Bayelsa State. Thank you for coming on the program as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Federikumo, I'll come to you first, but this question is to both of you. Apparently, with what we are seeing now, the battle line has been drawn. What are we going to see play out going forward?
Well, what is actually important is whether these battle lines are legal battle lines, whether they are lines that are actually supported by the Constitution, judicial decisions, as well as the laws of the land. Now, when there is a dispute as to questions of vacation of office by virtue of defection, 2 parties have opposing positions as to the status of certain members of the House of Assembly. The appropriate thing to do is not to resort to self-help, is to go straight to the courts. And it is for that particular reason the Constitution deliberately confers jurisdiction on the Federal High Court under Section 272, subsection 3, that they have the power to determine questions whether certain persons who have actually defected are no longer members of that assembly. It is not a question of where you belong. And that is why Section 6, subsection 6, paragraph B of the Constitution talks about judicial powers. When there is a dispute, you will refer the matter. And then you sheath your swords and allow the courts to deal with it conclusively. Now, you would notice that Section 272, subsection 3 of the Constitution has been interpreted severally by the courts. That it's only the Federal High Court, not the River State High Court, that has the exclusive responsibility of making pronouncement on that issue. So if you're of the view in the very first place that, okay, that certain persons have actually defected and they ought not to be members of the assembly, it is an affront to the law to set up a legislation of a few persons and begin to operate with it. Your duty is to go to the court, because no man should be a judge in his own court, in his own cause. This is basically the only way out of this particular crisis. There is a point that we need to also understand. You see, under Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution, there is a minimum requirement for any legislature. Minimum requirements. That is to say, the quorum for any legislature to function is stipulated for the House of Assembly. It says it is 1/3 of all the members of the House of Assembly. Now, all the members of the House of Assembly, that particular phrase has been judicially determined in the case of Dapialong against Darie, where the Supreme Court says it is with reference to the assigned membership in River State 32. So you have a case where 3 persons are now making laws purportedly for Rivers State, in defiance of the constitutional quorum, in defiance of judicial decisions, and in the process exposing themselves to the crimes of false assumption of office. How do you contemplate a situation where a man who has submitted himself to a process, submitted commissioners to a process, even if it's of the view at the end of the day that that particular agreement he signed was not constitutional, self-help was not the way out. The proper thing to have been done would have been to refer the matter to the courts. Besides, if there is a vacation of office in the first place, who is to complain? The person whose office seats have been taken and given to a different political party, the PDP. I have not heard of any situation that they are in court. So why would anybody complain and continue to use those issues as a basis for confusion in the system? My thinking at the end of the day is that the resort to self-help by both aspects will not solve anything. Let the Wike-Fubara wing of the assembly go and meet Abenle's wing in the Federal High Court and determine that particular question.
All right,
and that is why you notice that.
My apologies.
That is why you notice. Can you hear me? That's why you notice that even the Electoral Commission has refused to come into the matter. Because for as long as elections have not been conducted to fill those offices, you can't even say rightly that the defectees have lost their seats. It is not in your place. It is in the place of a different arm of government. All parties go back to court.
Let's take it to Dr. Lelonu. I'm sure you have a response to this. You were a commissioner, and of course, this gale of resignation, I think 8 in number so far, if we count those that took up federal appointments. I would like your quick response.
Well, thank you very much. The resignation of the 5 commissioners yesterday and those that have resigned before didn't come to us as Rivers people as a surprise. Rather, it bothers us that human beings who at their level has been seen as mature and should be able to take decisions by themselves, we allow themselves to be used by a particular individual who dictates when they are appointed into the cabinet of Rivers State, dictates when they should resign, dictates when they should be reappointed, and dictates when they should resign. You could see that these people were actually planted in the cabinet of the governor to sabotage his government. So leaving yesterday in their droves does not in any way affect the credibility of the government of Rivers State. It has only painted them and brought them to light that these actually are people who take decisions because someone is in control of them. So it eventually means that they belong to a personality cult where one man, the former governor who is now the FCT minister, dictates what they do, tell them when to eat, when to take their bath, and when to be loyal to their own state. It is unfortunate that most of these men are people who have worked in various capacities and should understand that loyalty to the state is number one to ensure that dividends of democracy is delivered to the people. But unfortunately, you could see what we are seeing in Rivers State. So they don't have any good reason for resignation. That means they also didn't come into the government with any vision to add anything to governance in Rivers State. So they are going out of government does not in any way affect Rivers State. Rather, they were constituting a cog in the wheel of progress. And having gone out now, it is expected that the governor will settle down, bring in people who will advance the cause of Rivers State and advance the cause of governance in Rivers State.
Well, but some would say that, more importantly, that their resignations do not come as a surprise, particularly when you consider that the governor had announced his decision to probe the former administration. So, it's a reaction to what has been done before. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if the governor announced that he was going to probe the former administration, it is something that is expected to be a very regular part of governance. Even in your private business, year after year, you audit your business. You look at how the business has gone, where you have done well and where you've not done properly. And so the decision of the governor of Rivers State, similar Wike-Fubara, to probe the affairs of governance in Rivers State in the past years is a welcome development and should be welcomed by every patriotic citizen of Rivers State, especially those who were deemed to be members of his cabinet from when this administration started till almost 1 year now. And so if for any reason they resign because of that announcement, it simply means that they also have skeleton in their cupboard that they are running away from. But let me say this clearly. I have said it and I want to maintain that they are leaving the cabinet because as commissioners in the cabinet and in their various ministries, they know what has gone on. They know what their former boss, who they are responding to, has done. And so they are afraid of testifying against him when the panel will eventually invite them to appear before the panel as a cabinet member. So you can see that these are people who have kept Rivers State in darkness perpetually for the past 8 years. And the young man is on the saddle of leadership, trying to turn things around, bring Rivers State back to its front row as a leading state economically and politically in Rivers State. And people are uncomfortable. Yes, you can now see those that we can really classify as enemies of the state.
Let me go to Mr. Federico and just bring this into the mix as well. For those who are watching and those who are political historians as well, they'll tell you that it's really tough to fight a sitting governor, perhaps because of the powers that come with that office. But that on the one hand. On the other hand is the fact that it looks like the governor is gaining the upper hand again when you rely on the powers which he has as a governor, as executive, which he is. So would you be suggesting to the lawmakers to maybe count their losses? Because some have said some of the moves they've even made seems to have put them at a disadvantage. Count their losses and move on from here. And he has said that for the good of the state, be loyal to the state and the rest, and allow this probe to go on. The current governor was a part of the former administration anyway, so if there's any sort of indictment, maybe he might also be caught in the web. What's your thinking regarding that?
The first point is the proposition that the governor is actually having an upper hand. As far as I'm concerned, is either here nor there. It is totally irrelevant to issues of law. First and foremost, the governor is a product of the Constitution. You have to understand that under Section 5 of the Constitution, his duty is to do two things. His duties are to execute provisions of the Constitution as he has been mandated to do, and also to carry out laws that are passed by the House of Assembly. In other words, executive functions do not operate in a vacuum. They must be with reference to law. That's why you see there has to be law, Section 4. There has to be the executive, Section 5. And then the judiciary, Section 6. So the governor doesn't actually have any power not vested in him by law. Let us be very clear about this. That is the reason why it is important in the light of all of this, because these questions can only be resolved by the third arm of government, vested with the responsibility of determining questions when there is a dispute between people. Let me tell you point blank. Governor Wike-Fubara does not actually have a legislature. The Constitution does not contemplate 3 people sitting for an entire 32 legislature. Go and check Section 96 subsection 1. So at the very end of the day, the question arises. You can't actually have valid commissioners in the absence of a proper legislature. In the case of Darie against Dakwalong against Darie, that was a situation where you notice that certain members of the assembly defected to the Action Congress of Democrats. 14 out of 24. 8 persons embarked on the process of impeachment of the president, of the governor. Supreme Court said you couldn't have actually done that. Supreme Court went on, nullified it, and said if there was indeed a defection, they ought to have conducted election to fill up all those offices before you can transact any lawful business. Do you imagine a situation where in a state where you have 32 constituencies, 3 persons have made themselves the legislature of that particular body? Why don't you ask them what is the legal basis for that?
Dr. Fidel, let me come to you. Let me stay with you on this particular one, because if it depends on who you are listening to. Some people are of the view that both the governor's side and the pro-Wike side are playing around illegality. What does that mean? You are saying that the House, according to the law, is supposed to have 24 members minimum and 40 in the House of Assembly. But in the case of Rivers, is actually 32. 2 are no longer there. 1 died, 1 resigned. So we have 30 members, and some are pro-Wike, some are pro-Fubara in this particular situation. And so you're saying the 3 persons led by Okojombo is not recognized by the law in your own interpretation. But others are also saying that the House led by Martin Amewule, for the fact that they resigned, according to Section 109, subsection 1G, there's no premise of division in the PDP that should make them still members. So there's no House of Assembly as far as they are concerned from the Amewule end. So what is, hold on, just so what is left? I'm not sure you
got my point.
Just hold on. Just
I'm not sure you got my point.
No, just hold on, sir. But there's another issue in front. Maybe you respond to that. There's another issue in front, and which is...
Can I take that issue first? Can I take that issue first, if you don't mind, please?
Okay.
The point is this. If you have listened very carefully to what I'm saying, I have not actually justified in defection. I'm saying to the extent that that issue is before the appropriate court, they should go there and fight it.
Okay.
Now, look at Section 96. That is the point. You see, self-help will not solve this problem. Self-help will not solve this problem. The reason why you have the judiciary is that they are to resolve issues of this nature. Let me read something to you. Section 96, subsection 1 provides, of the Constitution as amended, the quorum of a House of Assembly shall be 1/3 of all the members of the House. That phrase, all the members of the House, has been given judicial interpretation in Dapialong against Darie, and the apex court of the land, following a prior decision of Inakajo against Adeleke, said what this phrase means is the assigned membership of the House. In this case, 32. 32. So 1/3 of 32 will be say 10. You actually have, for those who actually say the others actually have defected. But interestingly, that decision says if they have defected, then you have a duty to ensure that you get your seats declared vacant and a fresh election conducted before you can function.
All right.
My point is this. On the Fubara side, they don't actually have a legislature. To the extent that the other people have an order of injunction sustaining their office, then they can continue to operate. Your duty is to go to the court they are and fight them.
All right.
That is the point I am making.
All right. Let me take to Dr. Lelono on this particular one. Since so let him have an input on this. Maybe you have to respond to some of the things he said. In addition to the fact that local government councils are chairmen are supposed to leave office next month, and there's an amendment to that effect that says that the House of Assembly can extend. And now the governor has had his own pro House of Assembly. What do you see happening in responding to what Dr. Federico has said, in addition to what I've just added to your question?
Well, clearly, the legal practitioner having spoken, I expected him to go look at the primordial issues, especially as the crisis in the assembly started. It is clear by law that there wasn't any crisis or division in the People's Democratic Party that would have warranted or necessitated the brazen action of those legislators who jumped ship from a party that sponsored them to parliament. And having done that, they have a clear understanding of the law that they vacated their seat, and their seat consequentially was declared vacant by the Right Honorable Edison Ehie-led faction of the Assembly. And that has been upheld by law. And there are also plethora of cases to decide eventually where the law stands in case of this defection and the leadership of the Assembly. And so that is no longer a subject of discussion, because as it stands today, no group of individuals can constitute themselves as an obstacle to governance and delivery of the dividends of democracy to Rivers people. And so it is clear that they have to follow the processes of court and determine whether they are still or not members of the House of Assembly, because the law is clear on their defection, which of course was not based on reasons in law for them to do so. Again, looking at such a House of Assembly that claim to be working for Rivers people and every day comes up with amendments and laws that seems to stifle governance in Rivers State, like you rightly pointed out, where in our constitution has the House of Assembly right to elongate the tenure of local government chairmen who were already sworn in for a 3-year term, and just 2 months to the end of their tenure, they come to tell you that, look, we have amended the law that they will not hand over on the 18th of June. That is laughable. It tells you the extent of legislative rascality that has come upon these outdone lawmakers. Because, again, I reinstate that these people are only acting the script of a man who intended to capture wholly the soul of Rivers State, his political machinery and his economic structure as a personal asset to his own personal pocket. And yet the governor came and said, look, this is not necessary. You cannot govern the state for 8 years and expect the man you supported to be governor to be at your whims and caprices, to koto in your poo-poo and answer to your cough and your sneezing. That is the crux of the matter. People need to look at what the problem is, because until we know what the problem is, we cannot proffer any solution to this crisis in Rivers State. The problem is someone wants to capture the soul of Rivers State. When there is a governor who is leading the state and governing the state, a governor who has won his election and has been affirmed by all the courts of the land, and a single individual said, I put him. Is he the one that casted the vote of 5 million Rivers people that came out to vote? So where is this, the phrase I put come from? So it is about a man who is restless, who is relentless, who is suffering from out of office syndrome and cannot realize that he is no longer governor of Rivers State. Borrowing from the words of Senator Lee Maiba, who said it in a forum yesterday, governors need to be debriefed. Former governors need to be debriefed once they leave office so they can understand that they are no longer governors. These are the things that democratic institutions in Nigeria should begin to put in place. You can look at other states where governors are now ministers, former governors are now appointed ministers. Are there crises in other states? Atiku Bagudu is a minister in the federal cabinet. Is there a problem in his state? There are other we have other people that were former governors that are ministers. Today people come out and say we are loyal to the FCT minister. The FCT minister, your loyalty should take them to Abuja. You don't become loyal to the FCT minister.
Strong was there. Strong was there.
Is the FCT minister here to do projects in Rivers State? These are the issues.
Strong was there.
If we don't look at the issues, we'll keep dancing around these things.
Yeah, and we hope for a resolution soon. Let me come to you now, Mr. Federer-Kumar. You have said that, it would not help both parties if they resorted to self-help, but it would seem like in all cases the rule of law is being jettisoned. I'd like you to look at the legality of the whole the whole gamut of issues in Rivers State against the backdrop of what constitutional lawyers are saying that, it's the intervention of the president by declaring a state of emergency that would, provide an enduring solution to all of this. But look at that against a backdrop of the ruling by a federal high court in Abuja on some of these suits initiated by parties in the Rivers State imbroglio. Justice James Omotosho had ruled at that time that the governor was not entitled to invite the National Assembly to take over the Rivers State House of Assembly, and that the National Assembly also lacked the powers to do so in the instant case. How do you weigh in on this? Or will a declaration of emergency overrule this decision of this FCT High Court?
Foremost, I have read the 72-page judgment of Omotosho. We need to be clear about one point. The reason why we are here today, there is still a conflict, is because of the refusal of the governor of the state to comply with the positive orders that were made in this particular case. We need to get this expressly clear. Now, I wanted to react briefly to what my co-participant actually said concerning the fact that the argument that there are no divisions in PDP. As far as I'm concerned, that itself is totally unnecessary. That is why you should go back to court and have those issues resolved. But the more fundamental point here is that, why is it that PDP whose seats have been taken from it to APC, they are not in court asserting the fact that these people are liable to live there? Why is it a third party? But let the courts decide. Maintain the status quo. And until you do that, even a state of emergency will not even resolve this kind of situation. Besides, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You just have 30 seconds.
Besides, under Section 308 of the Constitution, a state of emergency itself will only arise when you actually have an actual breakdown of law, making it impossible for the normal conduct of business to go on. The issues here are very minor issues. They're issues of defection. And they're already in court.
All right.
They should expedite the process of having these cases determined conclusively. My question to the man on the other side, a minute, sir, is there a final judgment of a court of law declaring the seat of the 27 members vacant on account of defection? There is none.
All right, Dr. Fidel-Kumar.
None whatsoever.
My apologies. We may have to butt in. So apparently from the takes here is that maybe expeditious hearing is necessary for this, but it's also confusing sometimes when it comes to politicians, how things that are expressly written in the Constitution will now be subject to interpretation of the court. But that's what democracy and the law is all about. So we respect all of that. So everybody has to abide by the rule of the game, which is we're ruled by, or we're run by the ground norm, which is our Constitution. I must thank you, Dr. Wike-Fubara, former Commissioner for Employment and Empowerment Generation, Rivers State, and Dr. Doye Fidel-Kumar, legal practitioner and lecturer, Faculty of Law, Niger Delta University, and Masoma in Bayelsa State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll switch gears now to what we call the softer side of things. This multi-talented singer joins us right here on the program. Who is she? Well, where to find out? Join us again.